Hmm? Ah!
You're listening to the Run for Your Lives podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And this is the Run for Your Lives podcast.
This episode, we're talking about the action thriller film Those Who Wish Me Dead, directed by Taylor Sheridan and released May 14th, 2021.
Ooh.
Relatively newer. I remember when this one first came out. I caught it pretty soon after it came out. And it was before I was indoctrinated into the world of Taylor Sheridan. I didn't even know who he was at the point, really, but...
Yeah, and I still haven't waltzed over to the Yellowstone world yet, so this is new for me. Had not seen this one, although you had. Yeah,
really, it was Angelina Jolie and John Bernthal that made me buy into this one. That's what I was interested in. And
there were a few Walking Dead connections in this movie. I may or may not have made a few notes about it.
So yeah, there's a lot of great stuff. So watching it again now that I have lived in the Sheridan universe for a little bit now, I was recognizing a lot more people, a lot more things, a lot more like not really tropes, but like his style and a lot of things. I was like, oh yeah, this is so Sheridan in every way, which I love because we covered Eli recently on the podcast because of the casting.
We did.
Of Kelly Riley. At least that was a big reason for me. So yes, this is another movie that I chose because of Yellowstone ties. Because I had seen this one before and enjoyed it, but yeah, again, directed by Taylor Sheridan, who is the creator and showrunner of Yellowstone and all of its spinoffs. He wrote the screenplay to this movie as well, although it is based on a book. And then it also stars Finn Little as Connor, and he plays the character of Carter on Yellowstone, so an actor from the show as well. Plus there's a couple others, which I also recently just found out that Finn is Australian, so score another one to the international actors on Yellowstone that are killing it so much that most people don't realize they're not Americans. Kelly Riley being involved in that as well, you know?
I know. Kelly Riley is a treasure. Loved her. She wasn't in this movie, but I think every time I think of her, I just go back to Prime Suspect, which was one of her earliest roles, and she was she crushed it.
Sheridan knows how to work with really great cast and actors. He knows what he's doing.
I feel like he likes to go back and work with the same people.
Oh, definitely.
Like he finds his favorites and he keeps working with them, which is what, a lot of directors do, but maybe not to the extent that we see with Taylor Sheridan or some of the others.
Or a Mike Flanagan.
Mike Flanagan, exactly. You know where I was going with that.
Yeah.
So in my head, all I go to is Hush, and it's like, yep, okay, here we go. His wife.
Right.
His amazing wife. Well, let's jump into it with some production notes, like we usually do. This movie was filmed in Santa Clara Pueblo, Benalillo, Albuquerque, and Rio Arriba County, New Mexico. Was based on Michael Corita's novel of the same name. The budget was $20 million, and it grossed $23.5 million at the box office. It was 100 minutes long. Pake, do you have a special synopsis for us this week?
All right. Yeah, I mean, people who listened last week already have it. They've heard it. Because I threw it in at the end of the AI poems and stuff. So I'm just like, well, I have it, so I'm going to stick with it. So here's our AI-generated poem for this movie that I thought was pretty fun, though. In fiery Montana's wilds, a boy pursued by those defiled, a smoke jumper, brave and strong, must keep him safe and right the wrong. Right? I don't know if I'm going to stick with the
Ooh.
poem theme, but for this week it works. It's fun.
You know what was interesting about this one is when I was putting together the character list, and then I started watching the movie, I went in thinking that Hannah was the main character, and I think that she still is. But there were also other things that happened in the movie that just made me focus more on different characters and not necessarily her so much. And it didn't go as deep as I was thinking. I've just heard so much about Taylor Sheridan and these characters that are complex.
Yeah, well, that's the difference between working with a multi-season series versus a less than 2-hour movie. Also, is you don't have time to flesh everybody out that much.
No. They gave us enough information to care about the characters, but nothing more. Like, there was no extra in this movie.
Yeah. But also evenly shared among everybody, like you said, to where, and I didn't really think about this till right now, but it does speak a lot to Taylor Sheridan's skill as a showrunner and writer of TV series, that really, when you look at this movie, it feels like it could have been like 2 or 3 episodes of a TV show, the way that it like really bounced around to like the storylines of different characters, that it almost felt like setting things up to like get to understand characters, to where like if you would have spent seasons and seasons with a lot of these characters, like there would be a lot more that could be unveiled. So yeah. It is interesting because it kind of does feel like a couple of episodes of a series, the way that he treats the storylines. So it makes sense that he has blossomed in television.
Definitely, because I think that his brand of storytelling is something that's better suited to a TV series. Because I could see this starting with the flashbacks that Hannah keeps having, like that being the first episode where she goes through that, and then the aftermath. Maybe the first season deals with that. And then the second season, we move on to what happened in this movie. On the flip side, I really liked that we did have enough information on the characters to care. I think the dad, Owen, before we jump into characters, I just want to say that the dad, Owen, I connected with him probably more than most of the others at first. Just because his scenes with his son, Connor, were, they rip your heart out. Yeah. It was sad. It was really sad. It was effective. So Taylor Sheridan does know how to tell the short form story. I think I was just expecting something a little bit different, but it was still good.
Nice.
Having not seen Yellowstone, I only know what I've heard about it. So I feel like I'm going to have to cross the threshold at some point soon and start watching it.
I would say if you enjoyed this show, if you liked the style of characters and kind of the emotional beats that he told, mixed with the kind of level of action and tension that he went with, I think you would really enjoy it, because it is very much that style. It is within his wheelhouse.
Yeah, for sure.
So as we always do, kind of go by characters. And this is interesting because, as you mentioned, that we really had talked about, that it does bounce around and there's so much shared amongst all the characters, to where, honestly, I think the characters that have the most of my notes, or have more notes than the others do, are probably Aidan Gillen and Nicholas Holt's Jack and Patrick. But just a lot of their scenes. So going character by character, we're going to leave a lot of things out, and then we'll circle back around to them with the next characters, I think, which is fine, because we don't have to recap the whole movie with each character synopsis. That's not what we're here for anyway. So
no, but we've had this happen before. Like, this happens in some of our other movies. So I feel like we start where we start, and we'll talk it out. It's what we always do.
Yeah. By the time we've gotten through the characters, we'll have covered the story, in some kind of order.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So if there's, because I know there are some people out there who listen to the podcast and have not seen the movie. So if you're expecting a linear telling of what happened in this movie through this podcast, you're not going to get that because we're going to be all over the place.
We do it our way. It's just a special run for your lives character analysis way that we go through the movie. And it just means it's not chronological.
Right.
It's just different. It's okay.
Yeah. So I feel like the place to start, though, is with Angelina Jolie's Hannah.
Mm-hmm.
Because she is technically, I would call her the main character.
Yeah.
Does seem to really revolve around her. I mean, Connor is a big part as well. But yeah, with Hannah, we see Angelina Jolie here cast as Hannah, who is a smoke jumper. I want to say like former smoke jumper at first, but I was like, but I think she's just working. She wants to get back to that. She's not like retired or quit. It's just right now she's suffering some PTSD, some trauma from this bad forest fire situation. So she's been posted as working on fire watch duty in a tower for a while to still work, give her something to do, but they're not ready to put her back in the field or the forest, you know?
But she's still kind of close with her buddies, like that were part of that group. But yeah, you do get the sense that she's, you know, she's got nightmares and she's been traumatized. Her experience that we learn through flashbacks, it's affected her. It is a continual loop in her head. Mm-hmm. And it's made it, I mean, she's bored. Being up in that tower 217, she's really bored.
Right. From somebody who used to jump out of planes to, like, parachute down to the ground to fight fires and rescue people, just sitting in a tower all day going, no fire today. Yeah, it's excruciating, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And she even gets on the radio at one point, and they kind of, the voice on the other end is just kind of like, well, this isn't, I can't remember his exact words, but, you know, he basically wants her to get off the radio because it's not meant to have conversations. It's really just meant, you know, to communicate when there's a fire.
Right. Which she was, like, had concerns because she's seeing this storm rolling in and being like, well, storms equal lightning equals fire, and if there's no rain in the storm clouds to put out the fires, and then, you know, what are the wind sources, you know, what's the wind like coming with this storm? Because that's exactly what happened with this fire that we keep getting these flashbacks to that has really traumatized her, was something caused by a storm where the people that are supposed to be, you know, taking the information on the other side of the radio didn't take that information correctly and gave them the wrong information or whatever it was, which is what caused the tragedy, what caused the problem.
But she took the blame of it. Like, it sounds like she was blamed for what happened, which is basically, because of the wind, the fire switched directions. And instead of fighting the fire, they were running from it. And some kids were killed. And I'm assuming probably some of her friends. I know one was, at least one of them was engulfed in flames. It was just a terrible situation. But she is doing her best to function in this world where she can't be the daredevil, even though, Pake, she still is a daredevil.
Oh, yeah. And you notice that, like, the crew that she's still hanging out with, she keeps up with her smoke jumper crew. Mm-hmm. And they are a lot. Just chaos. They're a bunch to deal with, but she loves that chaos. She thrives in it. And so it is hard for her being stuck on tower duty. So we see her acting out a little bit, you know, you know, this parachute jump out of the back of the truck. But it's kind of her way of showing or proving that she's capable as ever to get back into the action. At least she's probably trying to convince herself of that. Ethan sees that in her and is just like, you know, I know what you're doing. You know, you're trying to prove to everybody, even yourself, that, like, no, you're fine. You can get in this. But we see the way that she reacts to, like, these dreams and the fire and the lightning, to where she might not be ready. And she's probably trying to prove to herself that she is when she's not.
Yeah. I wondered if she was trying to hurt herself, honestly, because I think she's in a lot of pain, but I think you could be right. I think your idea is better than mine. I think she is trying to prove to them that she wants to be back out there and that she can be back out there, despite the fact that Ethan, her friend and former boyfriend, arrests her,
Mm-hmm.
or at least puts her in the back of the cruiser and talks to her. It's probably the only way he can think of to really get her to stop and sit down and like talk about things, because she blows things off when people try to talk to her about how she's doing.
So, yeah. So, we've kind of talked circles around it a little bit, but yeah, just kind of going through my notes, what I'm saying. I mean, we see more and more, proof and evidence that she is clearly haunted by that past, that PTSD.
Yeah.
Where we learn that she failed a psych eval, which is why she's in that tower. But Ethan even says that it didn't seem fair to give her a psych eval 3 days after the event happened. It's kind of like, give her a little more time to let things process.
Yeah, but she blames herself for everything. She thinks she's a coward because she didn't go after the kids. When there's nothing she could have done. They were gone. There was no way she could have gotten to them. It doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter how many times people tell her that it's not her fault. She's going to blame herself until she doesn't. Like, it's in her head. It's taken up residence in her head. And that is just how it is.
Yeah. And, so we have the lightning strike.
Oh my God.
First one that happens, which that's not helping.
Would you want to be in a 20 by 20 foot tin building when it's thundering and lightning outside?
No, I think I could. That kind of open. Yeah, no. It's like that's not helping the trauma at all.
No.
Having that tower struck by lightning. But because of that, she knocked out of the tower, and she ends up just kind of like getting away from it for a little bit, going for a walk where she crosses paths with Connor.
Yes.
Which, understandably, he's going to be very scared and cautious of literally anyone right now after the things that he's just been through.
Trust no one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, as you mentioned a little bit earlier, her trauma includes children, boys about his age too. So seeing that, there is a connection so it's kind of hard for her. Like, she's got to decide to face that, but also helping him in this situation is incredibly important to her. She kind of takes it upon herself, like, I can kind of maybe right the wrongs that I did, or right the mistakes, but then also just to be a good person and to help. Has to kind of chase him down and convince him that she's there to help. To love that, just like after he finally decides to go with her, he's like, "You're fucking fast."
She just seemed really not blunt, but just honest with the things. The dialogue in this film seemed honest overall.
Yeah.
And it took a lot for her to catch him. This isn't a role I'm used to seeing Angelina Jolie in. I mean, this is a plain face, no makeup role.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different.
Mm-hmm. It's not usually a role you think she would take. I think she's got some kind of relationship, like just a friendship or something with Taylor Sheridan, that they know each other well enough to to where she'll come when he calls,
Yeah. She wanted to be in this world with him directing is something that I read earlier.
Yeah, which, I mean, now, because, I mean, this is 2021 release, so, I mean,
it's only
Yellowstone
been 2 years.
had started, and so a lot of, in some other movies and stuff he had worked on had been picked up and happened, so his name was known well enough to certain people to where, I get it, like, even then, but especially now, like, if I was any actor, as any other, I'd jump at any opportunity to work with Sheridan for sure, so I get that.
Yeah, definitely. You want to. I mean, it's like to me, it becomes like a bucket list item for actors when there's a director like that. They want to work with them.
He managed to pull Sylvester Stallone into starring in a TV series. So, it's...
I know. Yeah.
He's got Harrison Ford starring in a TV series. Like, he's
got influence, okay?
Yes.
That's for sure. He has a successful TV franchise.
Yeah.
He does. So, everything he touches lately has just been gold. So.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Where it is, again, just pitch it to you while we're on here. It's a world worth jumping into. But yeah, and of course that lightning strike we talked about earlier fried all of Hannah's comms. So, how conveniently inconvenient. The working title for this movie was actually Lightning and Peroxide, since those are the two things that just are the loop of her existence, right?
I know, though. I mean, really. It's true.
Yeah. So as far as Hannah, we've kind of, again, because it jumps so much around that I'm like, well, notes on her is yeah, we've gone through the beginning of the movie with her. And now I'm going to jump to the very end because it's
yeah,
we've got her background, we know who she is, and then that's really it for, a lot of the story. Now she's on this mission to help this kid, whatever it takes. So,
I don't think when she first met him that she realized that this was the situation.
Right.
I think she thought, okay, this is a lost kid. Well, I need to take care of him. I can have redemption for what happened before. But talking to him and getting him to open up, she starts to learn that this is a very serious situation.
Yeah, once she reads the notes in the paper and stuff from Owen, that's where, because she moves from, you need to rest, we'll go in the morning, to, we're leaving right now. There are some very serious people after you right now, and we're going to take care of it. She realizes the intensity and seriousness of the situation. So yeah, go back to the fire. Back to the fire after the people have hunted them down and found them. Luckily, Connor does not listen to her in a very crucial moment. He does not go lay down in the creek 100 yards and to the left.
No. He's a badass kid. He is a badass kid. He came back at the right time to help her get the one-up on Patrick, which we haven't talked about them. Patrick and Jack. But we will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Patrick's there threatening to just make Hannah suffer unless Connor gives himself up, so he does. Then, however, and again, we will talk about them a lot more later, but later. But yeah, as smart as Patrick had been the whole movie, it was a real dumb move to turn his back on Hannah to slowly approach Connor from behind when obviously she's going to be coming right back at you with the pickaxe. You should know these kind of things.
I know. That was kind of out of character. There were a few places where things unraveled a little bit.
Yeah.
Not terribly, but...
Right, and that's like I said earlier, making it into a hour and 40-minute movie, where sometimes you have to kind of sidestep logic a little bit to be like, okay, we've got to wrap this up. Point A has to meet point B. We have to get there. Because I can't tell this in a 5-season series.
Yeah, I have questions about a few things that we'll talk about. They're in my other notes because, I didn't understand. There were some things I didn't understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the pickaxe, like I mentioned, but that's not how she kills him. She lets the fire finish him off.
Yep, how fitting.
Man.
How fitting.
Nicholas Holt's had some pretty shitty luck in our recent episodes lately, hasn't he?
Yes. Yes, he has.
We haven't talked about a lot of movies he's been in, but we have recently. When we do, it's not always great for him.
No, it doesn't end well. No, that's for sure. Right.
Yeah, which then again, kind of going into the very end, it gives us some major intensity of Hannah and Connor trying to outrun a rapidly spreading fire, where they make it to the water just in time and kind of ride it out there, alongside with Ethan and Allison trying to ride it out in a somehow magically fireproof wooden tower.
Again, another little unraveling.
Right. They put the smoke masks on, so the fire tower is fine.
Yes. And they don't get burned by the fire.
Yeah, no, they're totally fine. Well, I would say they're totally fine. Allison's totally fine. Tragically, Ethan does not make it through the night due to his gunshot wounds.
That's another part of the story that we haven't covered yet, but we will get to it.
Yeah.
I promise.
But, and then there we have Ben and a couple of the other smoke jumpers, and the reason I named Ben specifically as a smoke jumper, I will get to later.
Okay.
Yeah, they drop in for the rescue. Everybody that's still alive. R.I.P. John Bernthal's character, Ethan, too soon. They all reunite.
That bummed me out. I just have to say, that bummed me out. I wanted him to make it. There were things I really enjoyed about his character in this movie. So I really was bummed when he didn't make it.
Yeah, so that's really kind of all Hannah. Again, like a lot of her story is kind of her background and the mission she finds herself on. But, you know, we can wrap up talking about it pretty quickly. So, so I don't know if you have any more on her or not.
There were points in this that I wondered, I don't know if Ethan ever said to her, "This is my nephew." Like, I don't know if she was even aware that that's who it was.
Yeah, I don't think so. Don't think so.
And I'm just like, why would we not bring that up? That is there some deleted scene where...
Right. The only time I could think maybe he did is when he's in the fire tower with them and he's like kind of talking to them under his breath. Because then we come back to like Jack and Patrick's point of view where they're watching him. So we don't hear everything he said to them. So there could have been... Because he comes in and immediately because immediately he's like, "Connor, you're doing good, buddy." So like there would be a like, you know who he is? Like there would have been some kind of...
Well, that's what you would think. And also at the end when she's talking to him and he's like, "Where do I go now? What do I, I'm thinking, well, your aunt's still alive and she's having a baby.
You're going to probably go live with Aunt Allison. That's probably what's going to happen.
Yeah, and who... I'm not going to start the tangent that I could go on about Aunt Allison, but I loved her. She was great.
She's great. Yeah.
So great. And we'll talk about her in a few minutes.
Yeah.
It's so hard because I'm like gushing almost about her.
Oh, she's definitely an MVP of this movie. For sure.
Yeah. There was also this other part. When Hannah was asking Connor, "Is there anyone else in trouble?" And he says, "Not anymore." That broke my heart.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's talking about his dad. Like, this kid...
Yeah.
Finn Little did such a great job playing a traumatized child.
He's great. If you want to see more of his great trauma acting, again, Yellowstone on the Paramount Network.
Oh my God. Yeah. I
watch Finn Little cry and be traumatized.
Oh, no. I also did appreciate when Hannah explained to him what happened with the fire, because she didn't talk about it, really. It was just in her head on a loop, but she actually talked to Connor about what happened in the fire while he was talking about things that happened. I felt like getting down to his level and talking about your individual experiences helped him, I think, trust her just a little bit more, because he wasn't sure. I mean, his dad had said, don't, be careful who you trust or find someone you can trust. And that's a lot of pressure for a kid.
Right. A kid to make these references that only people who really watch would know. Because like, luckily in this movie, he finds, Angelina Jolie, Hannah is a much more caring caretaker than Beth is. I'll give her that.
Oh my God. Beth.
Give her that.
Oh man, I need to watch Yellowstone.
At least he's dealing with somebody a little nicer in this movie, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I don't have any other notes, so, should we just move on to Connor?
Yeah, that's perfect transition, because I've been talking about it a little bit. Again, even though I would call him a main character, I don't have a lot that we haven't already talked about.
I don't either. Kind of
his situation. We see at the beginning of the movie this attack on Fort Lauderdale, in Fort Lauderdale, on this house, and it's on the news. Connor's father is very spooked by it, even to the point he's just paranoid watching everybody trying to take Connor to school, to where he just bolts with him.
Yep, doesn't take him to school. But he he had a chemistry test. Like, he wanted to take his test. And
it sounded like it.
It's like, I don't want to go. I don't want to play hooky. I'm like, what child are you?
Right.
I don't know of any kids that don't want to play hooky. When mom or dad says, "Oh, you can stay home today," you do. You stay home.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, it seems like him and his father, even though, again, we only get a little, but you can infer a lot from dialogue, that they have a pretty close relationship. And I feel like his dad does tell him a lot of things, because immediately they're taking off And he looks at his dad and is like, "You're in trouble. What are you running from? Like, what did you do?"
Yeah.
Like, he
What's
knows his
happening?
dad well enough that something's happened. And he's
I
telling
like-
him he did the right thing, but that has
Mhm.
sent the wrong people after them.
Yeah. I liked the way that he explained the situation
Mhm.
to Connor, because he was very frank about it. He didn't try to make it like an elaborate story. It was just, I did, what my job is, and I found something. And there are a lot of people that will be hurt if this information comes out. And so they're trying to keep it from coming out. So this is the situation. And that, I mean, it was just a very honest, calm, frank way of explaining it to a kid.
Yeah.
And then Connor was on board with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like his reaction. He's like, his dad even, like, when they're in the, like, motel room and he's apologizing to him. And he's like, I'm sorry. He's like, but you said you did the right thing, and it sounds like you did. He's like, you did the right thing. So what is there to apologize for?
Exactly. And when they're in the hotel, Owen writes down all of the things he knows. And is just, saying, I'm writing all of this down. If anything happens, I want you to go to the news. This needs to get out. This information needs to get out. And I felt like that was his way of preparing himself to die. Like, he expects that he probably will be taken out, but it will at least make sure that the people responsible would be held accountable, because he's going to release the information that he has. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the big part, get it to the right people. But before that, give it to somebody you trust is a big important thing. And that's a big theme and a big thing in this movie, even with a seemingly random little side scene where they're pulled off on the side of the road, where Connor kind of goes over the fence and there's this like wild horse or whoever that he's petting. And this scene between Connor and the horse, it's like, even though it seems like nothing, there is a small analogy right there in there about trust and who's kind, even when you may not think so, and finding the right people to trust, even, when it seems a little wild, it's there.
His dad tries to get him away from the horse, thinking that he's going to hurt himself, but that's not the case, and I think you're right. Connor in that moment shows that, you can trust in this world, even though it seems like everyone's against you. Mm-hmm. And Owen's on the run. I mean, Owen's just on the run trying to get to Montana.
Yeah, so that's, like I was saying, when he meets up with Hannah, then, I mean, he's definitely scared at first, but through kind of listening to her and understanding her, and especially when they're back at the tower, realizing the kind of person he is, but there's that, where he says, my dad said to give it to somebody I can trust. And then the way he delivers that line, "Are you someone I can trust?" I was like, it's such a simple and even obvious line that you can almost say it before he does. He's going to say it, but it's still somehow very powerful. Like, where you're just like, yeah, I mean, this kid is beyond scared, and he needs to be able to rely on someone. And Hannah is literally his only option right now, and he has to put his trust in her.
Exactly. It was so simple, and I feel like a lot of this movie is just very simple. It's not. It's just presented. Here it is. It's not any gobbledygook or whatever. It's not like a mishmash of anything. It's, here it is. It's straightforward. And I just didn't expect that. I was expecting it to be really complex, and it wasn't. And I'm not complaining, because I think it was, I thought it was good. I just was expecting it to be complex. And so it was just kind of shifting my brain when I was watching it to think, I don't have to think watching this movie. It's just being presented, and I can just watch it.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is good sometimes. You need that.
I know. But I'm used to the complicated shows and movies, and
complicated
so it's
can
different.
Be great too. Like, even overly complicated movies that can get a bad rap for that. Like, I really enjoyed Tenet. But
you did?
I did.
I think you are one of maybe 3 people in the world who did.
Right. So sometimes overly complicated can be great if you're in that right mood and mindset and you're ready for it. But also very simple and straight to the point is great too when it doesn't need to be complicated.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, again, I mean, it's just, we've talked about everything, because everything else, I mean, he's with Hannah through the, barrage of bullets through the tower and escaping that and going to the fire and fighting with Patrick. And I mean, we've covered it, so he's been back through that. So again, at the end, though, we do see that the news, the federal government and authorities, more people are showing up, which shows that it has made this whole struggle for survival worth something more than just that. So that's good that we see that these things will get out. What does the future hold for Connor? We don't know, because they do, cut to credit. Again, I assume he'll be taken in by his aunt Allison. That just seems to make the most sense.
Exactly. That's what I think too. I did think it was really funny that he thought being underwater and surviving the fire was beautiful. Like, the fire's burning all around and they're going underwater and trying to come up for air and then going back underwater.
No, but it's a funny line. With Hannah, kind of backtrack on Hannah a little bit. Yeah, I think this experience did help her face her fears a lot, where she does view the fire.
Yeah.
And everything, when she's right there in the storm with it, when they're in the water where she is, just like, it was beautiful. And like, she's comfortable with that world again. And yeah, Connor does have that really funny line. It's like, beautiful. It scared the shit out of me.
Yeah. Because he's a kid. I mean, no child wants to be put in that situation. Mm-hmm. He was very brave throughout everything that was happening to him. So he basically saw his father shot to death. Like, I can't imagine. Just a horrifying experience.
Yeah, it's a lot, but it's a lot even for like a young actor to work with. So Finn Little, I got to give him a lot of credit. Yeah. And I hope to see him do a lot more. I've literally only seen him in this and Yellowstone, but I can see him going on and doing a lot of bigger things as the world opens up to him. He's puberty. You know what that does to kids. Because, the reason I bring it up is, like, as somebody who watches Yellowstone, it was funny because he looked just like he does in this movie in one season of Yellowstone. And literally, like, in season 3, he shows up in season 3 and he looks identical to what he does in this movie. And then season 4 came on and people thought they recasted the character.
Oh my gosh.
Because he had lean, he was so skinny and so tall, and his face, he looks 100% different when he between seasons. And you're like online people are literally like, oh, did they recast Carter? It's like, nope, that's still Finn. He just really shot up. He aged a lot between seasons.
Look at the kids from Stranger Things. I mean, we see different versions of them every
Speaking of another time. Finn Wolfhard. My God.
Even if you go back and watch him in It Chapter 1.
Right.
It's like, okay.
Well, they had to digitally, because we covered It Chapter 2. Did we talk about this in It Chapter 2? I know with some of the voices, they had to digitally alter between the movies. But I know, like, even, I'm sure we talked about it. I'm sure about it. Yeah, Finn Wolfhard. They digitally had to, like, de-age his face in those scenes because he looked so much different between them. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it's aging. Kids get older. They went through the same thing.
They do it real quick sometimes.
Walt on Lost.
Yeah.
Aged up, and then
I remember that.
they were written out of the he and Harold Perrineau were written out of the series. I think part of it was because he just was aging too fast.
Mm-hmm. How it goes. Yeah, it was a weird tangent. Anyway, but coming off it, because, just with Finn Little, because I've only seen him in the 2 things, and so I would be interested to see what more he is capable of, because he's a great dramatic actor, and to really have that kind of those drama chops at that age is incredible.
Yeah, definitely. So, who would you like to move on to next?
Well, next on my list, I have got Sheriff Ethan and his wife Allison. So yeah, let's
Oh boy.
talk about them. Of course.
Can I just tell you what my first note was on this when I found out that he was married? Oh my God, it's Shane with Annie. It's come full circle. He's with Negan's wife.
Right.
Like, oh my God.
That's fun.
This is crazy. It's crazy.
Walking Dead connections.
Yeah. I liked his character in this. He just seemed like a really good guy and no nonsense. Very loving with his wife. We learned that he did have a relationship with Hannah at one time, but now he's married to Allison. She's 6 months pregnant. Then I got nervous for her because that never goes well. I feel like that is just, no, this is not going to work. Something bad's going to happen.
Oh, yeah. When you say, like, that'll definitely be a point of concern when you find out she's pregnant.
Yeah. Well, it did come to, I really thought she was going to end up being a goner when Jack and Patrick showed up at the house.
Oh, yeah. I wanted to ask you about that. I have a note about that. In my notes, I address it, like, to you, which is funny.
Oh, God.
Because, So I was saying, as, we see Allison's been waiting on Ethan to get back, and then a truck pulls up, so she steps outside. And I was like, I had to know. I was like, Daphne, did your heart literally just drop when you see Patrick and Jack walking up instead of Ethan?
Yes. I assumed it would be. And I really expected that she was going to die. Imagine my surprise when we get to learn that the most badass character in this movie is Allison.
Yes.
I mean, the way she turned things around with them, telling them what they wanted to hear, and then giving, the trauma, what was the name? What did they call it? The
distress word.
The distress. Yeah. So she gave the distress word to Ethan, which I think she meant to do it because she had a weapon.
Oh, yeah.
That the weapon was awesome, was perfect. She set Jack on fire. I was just like, oh, this is great. Now, I do love me some Aidan Gillen and Nicholas Hoult. I think they're great.
Yeah.
However, they were the villains, and I wanted them to die. So, when she turned around and set him on fire and got away, I was just like, oh, all right. I guess this is going in a direction I wasn't expecting.
She's capable. But then we learned she runs a survivalist school. So, of course, she's capable. She has this little makeshift flamethrower with this bear spray that she had.
Yeah.
Where when she's threatening to spray it, and Jack thinks in his face, where he goes, "You're holding it the wrong way." And I love it. She's like, "No, I'm not," and just collects the fire with it and turns it on him.
It was great. It was amazing. I wasn't expecting it, so that was a pleasant surprise. And she does manage to get away from them, but she's so good with a gun. She is the queen survival.
Yeah.
I was totally on board with this because she does run that survival school. But even at this, when we're first, and I have to mention this now because I feel like some things just muddle in between the two. I wasn't clear about Connor and Owen's relationship with Ethan and Allison till he finally says, well, he married Owen married my sister. And so it's like, okay, so they're related. This is the nephew. And when she got away and she takes out Jack with the gun, Jack really underestimated her. And of course he hates this place. He said that multiple times.
Oh, yeah.
When she finally does take him out, I started to get worried for Ethan because I just couldn't imagine that this was going to end in a way that both of them were going to survive. So I'm like, oh no, he's going to die.
Yeah, that she takes him out pretty handily in their face-off. I mean, yeah, he was a little burnt and toasty and crippled and tired, but I'm not going to let any of that take anything away from her.
He was fading. He said, I'm fading.
Yeah.
I'm fading. What do you mean you're fading? Do you need to go take a nap? So most people say they're fading when they want to go to sleep.
He's been through a little bit, because I even said, Hannah and Connor had escaped thanks to that forest cover and Allison coming in and kind of taking some shots to allow them to escape. So, yeah, Patrick goes after Hannah and Connor and say old crispy faced Jack is hungry for revenge. So he's
And at that point I wrote, don't fuck with the Punisher's wife. Because, John Bernthal plays the Punisher.
Yes, so. Which I loved having John Bernthal in this movie. I love me some Bernthal. Time for my humble brag moments. Like, yes,
Here
I have had the honor of meeting and interviewing and talking to Bernthal. I moderated a panel of his in Chicago. Actually, it was a Punisher panel, so there's other Punisher cast members on there as well. But Bernthal was just a really, really sweet guy, really good guy, great actor, all of it. So since that moment of interaction with him, anytime I see him in anything, it just makes me like him even more,
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to if you didn't.
Right. Yeah, so I have done convention work with Bernthal before, and he's great.
You were supposed to do his panel a year ago. And then
he was supposed to do it in Atlanta, and he ended up not being able to make it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe one day again. Maybe our paths will cross somewhere down the line. Who knows? And then the other sheriff that he's working with, just going to give a shout out to another Yellowstone cast member, Boot Sutherland. Yeah.
I liked him. I liked the sheriff. He had a secretary or unofficial secretary sitting in the other booth watching his phone for him. I'm just like...
Yeah, so that's another Yellowstone actor. He's done a lot of Western work, which probably doesn't surprise you.
Sense.
He looks like a Western actor,
sense.
Right?
It makes sense. I'm not surprised at all. I liked him. I was bummed when they shot him in the head. This is not okay.
Yeah, but it was through that scene in the diner together with them that, that's kind of, you learn that Owen had told his brother-in-law everything, and so they're having that conversation about it, between the sheriffs, and about, how credible it really is, to the other authorities. Like, they're not so sure, because it's a lot of accusation that they're going to need proof for.
Yeah, well, they have the proof. The problem is keeping themselves alive until they can get there.
Right.
Because Jack and Patrick, they figure shit out.
Right.
They figure things out very quickly. They're very perceptive of things. And so they realize that Connor and Owen have headed to Montana, to his brother-in-law, to Connor's uncles, because it's a survival place, because they have that survival camp. So they are, it doesn't take them long to get on the bus and go. Not the bus, they flew there, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, Jack and Patrick, I've got thoughts on, their capabilities.
Yeah.
But I do have a couple notes about Ethan still.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, like you mentioned the other sheriff getting shot, which, that was... I'm like, I knew, of course, after that phone call with his wife, he's gonna come rolling up. But he should have had more backup than just the one other sheriff. Like, what are you doing with just the one guy? You should have had much more of a police presence with you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And he knows that his wife can take care of herself. But one cop, even if it is like the chief, it's not enough. At least I assume he's
and really,
chief.
Yeah, the only thing they had on him, the upper hand that they had on him, was threatening the life of his wife. Because they do threaten, saying, Jack lies to him and says there's a third person with them that has her somewhere. And that's how they, get the upper hand on him and talk him into complying with searching for Connor with them. Which I have to give major props to the character of Ethan. Then, after he sees that Connor survived, he finds the footprint and he tries to cover it. But again, Patrick is so smart. He clocks it.
Is.
He's a tracker. We find out he is a tracker. and he knows what's going on. And so he's like, the kid made it, and this guy's trying to cover the tracks. I love that he just has that kind of moment where he throws it all down. He's like, I'm not going to help you hunt down my nephew.
Right.
Like, you're going to kill me at the end anyway, so just do it now because I'm not going to help you. Like, that's...
Right.
And again, the way that they get that upper hand on him is with the life of his wife, because if he would have known that she wasn't captive and was out free on her own somewhere, that would have been the end of him right there, because there was nothing that they could have said to get him to comply.
No. Exactly. And I'm still not convinced that he couldn't have taken at least one of them out if he knew for sure. Because he just would have been enraged to that point, even more so than he was. I think that by causing that scene or throwing that fit that he had, it also bought more time. It was also more time that he was buying for wherever Connor was to be able to get further away or hide or whatever he needed to do.
Right.
It's yeah.
Good guy till the end. He really was.
He was. I really wanted him to make it. I was bummed when he didn't. But I also get the point, despite the fact Allison's pregnant, he wanted her to get out of there. I get the point where she wanted to be with her man. I mean, that's just what you want to do when it's that situation.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so that's now all I've got on him. If you have more.
No, that's everything I have. I just... Oh, do we want to talk about the Yin Yang twins? Because that's exactly what... Yeah, Yin and Yang.
Let me whisper in your ear. Oh, different Yin Yang twins. Got it.
Different Yin Yang twins, but yeah.
Uh-huh.
You've got Jack.
Yeah, Jack and Patrick.
Oh. Aidan Gillen plays... He's so good at being a bad guy. He is. I mean, we're talking about Littlefinger.
Yes.
Okay? He's played the bad guy in a bunch of different things. And so... It's not a stretch. He does such a great job with it. I do think sometimes he has a hard time hiding his accent because he's Irish.
There were a few moments there the dialect comes out just a little bit. And you're like, okay.
Yeah, and I've seen him in The Wire. He's another show that I've seen him in. And he does a good job, but it still comes out just a little bit. I think Nicholas Hoult hides his better. Yeah.
Yeah. Which Hoult, maybe you could prove me wrong, but just thinking off the top of my head, I don't see him in villain roles as often. I mean, he was a douchebag in The Menu, but...
Yeah, but no.
But typically, he's kind of more of the hero. I mean, he's an X-Man, right?
Yeah. Yes.
But then, Mad Max, he's great with that kind of role
Nux.
and stuff like that.
Oh my God, he was great as Nux in Mad Max. One of the things I was thinking when the movie first started and the house blew up, I'm thinking, Nicholas Holt's come a long way from playing this teenage brat that he played in the British TV show Skins. However, I don't know if I buy him as a hitman. Like, that was my initial thought at the beginning. I'm like, no, I don't know that I can buy him.
But did he change your mind over the course of this movie?
I don't know. I think he played a very smart, brains part of the operation. I think he can do it. It's just, I still don't see him as a hitman. I just think he's...
I don't know. I bought onto it pretty quickly for him.
Did.
I think when he's firing on the car from on the hillside with that rifle, and then... Or even when they land in the plane and he's taking the keys to that truck. I mean, I don't know. I felt like he fit the role very well. He was ex-military, man on a mission kind of guy. And I bought it.
Okay. All right. I've seen him in a couple of other things and I don't buy it. Although The Menu, I could have bought it with The Menu. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, they set up these two to be some pretty awful bad guys right from the jump. I mean, we see, that house where they enter this home, they're posing as city officials. One's like a fire chief or, firefighter, and the other is, works with the gas company. And they go inside to rig the house to blow and leave with the family still inside, including, we hear a baby crying when they're talking to the woman on the at the door. So, like, we know the kind of situation that they just walked in and we're like, that's fine. Not a problem for us.
Yeah, we're going to blow up the house.
And throughout the movie, they don't really question, like Jack has that line when he's talking to Arthur, their boss, which, a little Tyler Perry reveal as the villain leader. That's fun.
We don't ever see Tyler Perry in roles like this.
Right. And it's as small of a little like cameo role it was almost, just to be like, oh, he's here. Like, oh, who's the big villain? Who's the guy that tells them?
I know.
Oh, it's Tyler Perry. Okay.
Okay. It's not what I expected. I feel like that happened a lot with this movie. I was like, okay, yeah, that's not what I thought it was going to be. All right.
Yeah. But yeah, but it's, we see that they understand the murky morality of the things that they're doing. It was like, we're hunting down a child to murder him. And we're going to have to kill everyone that gets in our way, innocent or not. Doesn't matter who they are. To where Jack's like, things are going to get really messy. Do the people who payroll us, do they have the stomach for all of the innocent people and children that we're going to murder? And it's like, well, it wasn't so much of like, I have a problem with doing this. It's like, is the person who's giving me my paycheck okay with me doing this?
Exactly.
Because I have no problem.
Right. Although I don't know that he was ever going to kill Connor. I think it was Patrick that was going to pull the trigger on Connor. That's at least that's the impression I got. I thought they were an unlikely team.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because I just am used to seeing Aidan Gillen play these smart characters. So to have it be on the flip side, where Jack's just annoyed. Well, we needed 2 teams and they didn't give us 2 teams. And, I hate this place. I don't like this place. And Patrick is just very like even keeled, straight to the point. He thinks through things. And Jack's more of a firecracker. Yeah, it was a little bit different than the Aidan Gillen villain roles I've seen. Littlefinger wouldn't have been bouncing off the wall like a firecracker. No. So, it was just kind of different.
But yeah, I liked them as the villains. I think they did a great job. And like I said, we see very early on, like, they're willing to do anything. They are a formidable force. Again, they do piece together that Owen had fled to Montana using their villain powers. It's a little tropey, but you got to get there somehow, where they can just like go online and be like, and then looking at one picture frame and being like, that's where they went.
That's where they went. Oh my God. But you can understand where he said he wanted to have 2 teams, because ideally they would have pulled the things off at the same time. So that Owen and Connor would not have had an opportunity to run. It just would have been handled at the same time.
But yeah, so they do catch up with Owen and Connor pretty easily. I mean, since they seem to have funded by whoever these powerful individuals are, plane transportation and any weaponry they need and tech gadgets and all of these things. So they're taken care of. So they can get there, catch up, take care of it, the problem pretty easy with Owen. But the ambush does get messy.
It really does. They have to kill an innocent bystander. This woman was just driving by and was going to offer to help, I guess, and boom, gone.
Mm-hmm. So and then Jack ends up getting clipped by Owen's car during that scene, which is kind of an early injury that he's dealing with. Because I feel like that was, they don't really play it up too much, but even when they meet with Arthur, their boss, where he asks about the limp and he's nothing. And I don't think the fading was just the flamethrower to the face. I think there was some internal injuries that he took from that car that he's dealing with too. I think he was not in great shape and he just kind of kept pushing through. Things kept happening to him.
He just wanted to be over.
Right. But yeah, because it got pretty messy again with the gunshots, the car crashing down the hill, which gave Connor the time to get out and escape that he needed. Yeah, the innocent woman showing up at the very wrong time. But all of that kind of gave that window for Ethan to show up and figure out what had happened to, of course, then over the radio, they're going to have the connections on the radio to where that's where they find out, well, the kid's not there.
Yeah.
They're like, what kid? There's a kid. Oh, no. So now they're on the hunt for him.
We got a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But they start this big distraction by these magical fire flares that create not just a little fire in a couple of minutes. It's like a full-blown raging fire in the span of 60 seconds, which I was kind of like, don't know about that. That doesn't, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Maybe it took a little longer. We just kind of skipped some time. I don't know. Yeah, their idea was, things are about to get real murdery in this small town, so we've got to distract the authorities with something else. So we're going to start a raging forest fire. Smokey is so deeply disappointed in you boys. Only you! Only you!
Only
He's
you
crying in a corner somewhere.
Only you can prevent forest fires.
Or start them. Yeah. Oh, I had another note about the meeting with Tyler Perry's character, Arthur. Again, kind of tropey, but it's funny. It's like, oh yeah, nothing fishy at all about these men in expensive suits and being driven in Escalades, meeting in a field next to a truck stop somewhere. Nothing fishy about that at all.
It was ridiculous. When Jack and Patrick got all, glamified up with their suits and their badges and stuff, I just started thinking they looked like they walked straight out of Men in Black. It's like, here we go. Do they have the little magical tool that will make you forget everything? Because they could just use that on Connor and he wouldn't know what was going on.
Right.
They wouldn't have to kill anyone.
But I feel like that would have been boring for them. They want to kill people.
I know. They were psychotic.
They were, because again, that's where they meet up with Allison, which they're really, because you think they're threatening her and roughing her up and throwing her around over the table and all this stuff. And then you have that moment where they realize she's pregnant. Patrick sees all of the baby stuff in the other room, and he whispers to Jack, "I think she's pregnant." And they have this kind of moment, and then you're like, "Oh, so maybe they're gonna have a change of heart or mode because of this." No, that doesn't really affect it at all. Then they just use that to their advantage. Like, "Oh, you're pregnant? You have a baby on the way? Well, think about that. Use that as the reason why you're going to tell us everything we want to know, because now we're going to kill you and your baby." No, they're totally okay with using that for more fuel to get what they want.
Yeah, well, they took a poker out of the fire, and we're going to poke her eye out with it, I think. I mean, they were real brutal. Just kind of like, you guys, no. Burning alive is too good for you.
Mm-hmm. Which is what they say they're going to do to Allison as a threat to Ethan.
Yeah.
So, yeah, not great. Of course, we do see that it's hard for people to pull things over on them, which I did like that about them up until the end again, where I was like, but then he turns his back on Hannah. You would think he would know not to do that, because we see throughout the movie how highly trained and skilled they are, where the distress word, or watching Ethan through the window and realizing, oh no, he's speaking to them. There's something they were hard to fool. They knew what they were doing.
Until they weren't.
Right.
And then they were just bumbling like idiots to me. I'm just kind of like, are you the two henchmen? Are you really going to be those two henchmen? That type of henchman where you are super smart and then you don't know what you're doing? Because that doesn't work for me. That's like I said, there were little things that were unraveled a little bit.
Yeah.
They weren't quite as tight as they should have been. But that may be just what Sheridan wanted, was little unraveling things here and there. I don't know.
Yeah, that's again the limitations of a movie, which it's crazy that we live in a world like that now, where it's the films that have limitations, where you can get away with anything and do everything in TV. Because it did not used to be that way. It was the other way around, where TV was kind of like where writing dreams go to die. And if you really want to tell a story, you put it on the big screen. And now it's like, you've got to struggle to figure out how to tell a convincing and compelling story in 2 or 3 hours on a movie screen.
Yeah.
When you can really flesh it out and have all the story and all the budget and all the things you need on TV. It's crazy that it's flipped like it has.
Yeah, it's kind of like the HBO effect. HBO and those, cable channels that are, premier channels. They've changed everything.
Yeah.
Now, TV shows need bigger budgets to be able to pull these things off, and they're getting it, especially in the second season, because channels are willing to invest. Mm-hmm. It's like, who's going to do it bigger and better? And so that's the ongoing thing.
And it's paid off because more people are watching TV. Like, I mean, not even super pop culture nerds and podcasters like us, but just like any run-in-the-mill, like anybody in any, walk of life that you ever talk to. Like, people don't talk about movies as much. I mean, they do to some degree. It's still there, but what are the conversation starters? What is a water cooler talk? What is the, what are the big pop culture conversation things? Are a lot of times is TV. What TV shows people are binging or watching or what's, like.
We just did, on my other podcast, which is not related to movies, it's related to figure skating. We had an interview with an Italian figure skater who won the Junior Grand Prix final in December. He's one of the top junior skaters in the world. We asked him the question what he's binging, and he told us, and he said, but my favorite show is Game of Thrones. And that was the first time that it's come up that I had a complete nerd out about Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon. Even asked him, are you team green or team black? Like what? We talked about it. It was so much fun. And my co-host Gina, who doesn't watch that, just kind of sat there and let us go off on it. She just said they'll come back when they're ready. So it was kind of fun. But I do think, the water coolers. And the funny thing is, I don't know that people stand around the water coolers anymore because I feel like the pandemic changed that. So I don't know, but I feel like when people get together in however they congregate, TV pulls people together.
Oh, yeah.
And, whenever I get together with friends, it's always, have you been watching The Last of Us? What do you think about this? Are you caught up? And we'll talk about things.
That's like usually where the night starts on like Monday nights. I play D&D. I'm that kind of nerd. Yes, people. Where, we have our D&D group night, and like that's literally how it starts is we all show up, and then it's like, so last night's Last of Us, right? Yeah, we talked about that for a little bit, and like, okay, now let's get into the game.
Yeah.
Like, it's very,
You can't help it. You just, whatever show is at the time, like when The Last of Us ends, for me, Yellow Jackets will be starting. So it's like, I'll be transitioning to that. And then after that will be another one. Like, it's continual. Whatever's going on at the time, we just transition to whatever the show is. Because I'm usually watching it. Whatever it is.
Yeah. So, that was a fun tangent on TV shows. Now back to our movie podcast.
We love tangents on this.
Movies are still great. Movies are still good. We still love movies.
Yes, we do.
That's why this podcast exists.
Yes.
We've covered one TV show. Technically two. One episode of a show and then one season of a show. We'll do TV show things now and then, but this is a movie podcast.
But this is a movie podcast.
So we still love movies.
Yeah.
But we got to give our love to TV.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's kind of all of my notes there on them, and really all of my character notes at all. I've got a couple other little tiny notes, but...
Yeah, I do have a couple of little things. I don't have any... My character notes are done. But I have a couple of other little notes here and there. I thought it was really interesting that Hannah's little co-workers were giving that poor girl at the bar such a hard time about her boyfriend. I'm like, okay, I know it. He's kind of a hipster. Is that like not a thing that happens anywhere else? And so we have to pick them apart. Then also Pake, At one point, Connor found a grasshopper and he put it, he was so nice. But I wondered, is that something you would fry up and eat? Because we know that. I have to say that.
No comment. Have I definitely done that as a kid living in Texas? Maybe. I
had to bring it up. I did. I'm sorry. It had to happen. Different areas of the country have different things that they eat that are. It's just.
It's not a normal thing here. No, it's not.
Yeah, and that's pretty much it. Because I already talked about the fire. They got that fire going way too fast with those fire flares or whatever they were.
Yeah, like I said, I'm gonna assume they set it and drove off, and then like a while had passed.
No, they were still standing there, Pake, and it was all burning wild. There's no way that got going
at least in that
fast.
area. I don't know.
Unless it was a tinderbox. I mean, it was not going to go like that. That was just nuts to me. So what other?
They're super flares.
Super flares. Okay.
Super flares. Government issued ultra mega flares. That's I don't know.
Okay. All right. If that makes you sleep at night.
Sure.
But those are all of my notes.
Yeah, I just had like two other little Sheridan notes. Definitely, again, watching this a second time after having binged through everything Yellowstone related ever and watching some of his other things and movies and kind of understanding his style. Cinematography. He is a sucker for beautiful cinematography. He loves his sweeping views of the Montana mountain ranges and forests. Taylor Sheridan sure loves those great outdoors, and I don't blame him because it is gorgeous.
He does. He likes that Western feel to things.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's definitely his vibe.
Oh, for sure. And so, because that's a lot of Yellowstone. Is like, let's just take this panning helicopter or drone shot of these mountains and plains and everything for a few minutes, and you're like, I get it.
Yeah.
So it was definitely in this movie as well. And then, the other thing I was going to point out is I mentioned Ben specifically is the name of the character.
Did.
One of the smoke jumpers, who is played by James Jordan. This guy I am also assuming is a close personal friend of Taylor Sheridan, as he has been referred to as the Where's Waldo of Sheridan's projects. He is always playing... Yeah, he is always playing some kind of small role here and there, like in most everything that Taylor Sheridan's done. He's in Yellowstone, 1883, Mayor of Kingstown, Wind River. He's already been announced to be in the cast of the upcoming Taylor Sheridan project, Lioness, that series. So,
oh my gosh,
yeah, he's the guy that just like if it's a Taylor Sheridan thing, like there's a very high chance we're going to see James Jordan pop up as some small side character somewhere. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wow. He's got his own stable of people that he wants to work with, so he's comfortable.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You were mentioning earlier, he got Harrison Ford to be in a TV series. Well, he got Helen Mirren to be in one, too.
Yeah, same one.
Yeah, it blows my mind.
Yeah, 1923. Yeah, Harrison Ford, Helen Mirren. And another Game of Thrones connection. Jerome Flynn is in 1923 as well.
Oh my goodness. Well, Helen Mirren actually was the star of Prime Suspect, which is the show I first saw Kelly Riley in. So it all comes full circle.
Right. And then having 1883 had Sam Elliott and a Tom Hanks cameo. So
oh my gosh.
Yeah, he's got his pull, for sure.
Wow.
Yeah, so those are all the notes I've got. That's it.
All right, well, we did it then.
Mm-hmm.
I have a few behind-the-scenes notes to talk about. So, Michael Corita, who wrote the book, was a co-writer on the screenplay. At first, Taylor Sheridan was hired to revise the screenplay. However, when a different director backed out of the project, contacted the studio with a proposition. "If I can get Angie to do this with me, I'll direct it for you," he said. And the studio said, "Great, you'll never get Angie." Well, newsflash, folks. He got Angie. So Sheridan has gone on to create the Yellowstone universe, which is much more complex. His characters are normally more visceral and gritty than what we saw in this. I mentioned that earlier, and I'm totally fine with it. I think, as we've talked about this movie, I've really got more of appreciation for the fact that it just was presented. It wasn't flashy or over the top. It was just what it was. It wasn't, it wasn't in your face. So Brian Tyler composed the score. He's worked with Sheridan on all of the Yellowstone series and the spin-offs. He's also worked on films such as Battle Los Angeles and Ready or Not. Those
sound somewhat familiar for some reason.
So Rodeo FX oversaw 283 visual effects shots. Luma Pictures and Mavericks VFX were also involved. The CGI fire was done in Houdini, rendered in Arnold, and rendered out in Katana. Those are programs. In addition, a 300-acre forest was built in the center of the desert, which they intentionally ignited without any harm. Professional firefighters remained present throughout the whole event to cautiously manage the blaze. And during this time, Angelina Jolie conversed with some of the firefighters to gain knowledge about the hazardous occupation of smoke jumping. When Hannah and Connor were running to jump into the water, they actually were jumping into a water tank. So they merged them being in the actual water with the water tank to make that all look like it did. They had to examine which trees make up the forests in Montana. So when they were constructing things in CGI, they wanted to make sure that it looked the way that it was supposed to, and that it could merge with the original forest footage. In some cases, only the actors and the foreground components were retained. The other elements were replaced with the CG effects. But by doing this research, they were able to make it look seamless. The book, which served as the source material for the film, disclosed that Jack and Patrick Blackwell were brothers. They hailed from Australia, and as per the book, Jack was supposedly linked to the criminal underworld of Sydney, whereas Patrick was reportedly released from the Australian military. However, in the movie adaptation, their origins were modified to portray them as Americans, presumably from Florida. Also in the book, Connor is named Jace and is sent to live with Ethan and Allison at their wilderness survival program in Montana after he witnessed a murder. It's a little bit different.
Yeah.
And finally, the film was seen in the Oscars pre-show montage in 2021 as part of a thank you to people for saving movie theaters.
Interesting.
Because, of course, the pandemic happened. We were not going to the movie theaters. Then we did go back to movie theaters. And now I go as often as I can.
Right. I haven't been super often lately, just because there hasn't been a lot of stuff to like really want to see, other than, you know, like I went and saw Black Panther, and then like the next time I went after that, which was like November, then I saw Ant-Man recently, and I'm actually tonight as this is being recorded. So last week, for those who are listening, like immediately after recording this, I've got a ticket to go see Cocaine Bear tonight, and I'm so excited.
Yes. Yes.
Let's just say, getting in early on that movie, but that movie will come back up on Run for Your Lives.
It will. As soon as it can. We have to wait till it gets to streaming. But it will be coming up on a future episode of Run for Your Lives. Our friend Alex brought it to our attention a few months ago. And so we've really just been waiting for it to hit theaters. It's directed by Elizabeth Banks. So, yeah, we're both really excited to get to watch it, and it'll be fun to go because I'm planning to go tomorrow. It'll be fun to go without thinking about it from a podcasting perspective. But I think what I will do is when I get home from the theater, I'm going to write down some like first initial things. Mm-hmm. So I have those to carry over for when we do podcast on it.
Yeah. So yeah, be looking forward to that. Cocaine Bear will be an episode of Run for Your Lives in the future once that's out widely.
Yes. We did it, Pake.
We made it. Another episode. All right.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And we have feedback on it. So we'll have to see if anybody left any voicemails or calls or messages or thoughts or if it's just a telemarketer. We'll see.
Well, hopefully it's not that same one that called you a few weeks ago and left a message.
Oh, God, no.
That was rough.
All right, we do have a message this week coming from faithful, loyal listener, Tony. We can always count on you. Even if it isn't for this movie, but that's okay. Maybe you'll get a chance to watch it. I don't know where this one is widely available for a lot of people to like stream or anything right now anyway, so I think it's just like you got to purchase it at a couple of different places. So could be a little harder, but if you do watch it, let us know. But she does give us a little bit of feedback for Eli a couple of weeks ago. So I will read that one for you. She says, I finally watched Eli, and up until the end, it was a fairly predictable ghost story, or so I thought. That twist was head-shakingly bad, but completely surprising. Lily Taylor, she is in some great TV and movies, The Haunting, The Conjuring, and not horror-related, 6 Feet Under.
Yes, I loved 6 Feet Under. She was awesome in it. Everyone should check it out.
Yeah, it's been on my list for like my whole life. But I just haven't had a chance yet. No, I love Michael C. Hall so much, so I don't know why I haven't watched it yet. It's just
he's so fantastic in it. Mm-hmm. It's the show that introduced me to the amazingness that is Michael C. Hall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One day.
And Lauren Ambrose is in it as well. And it's just great.
Yeah.
You gotta check it out.
One day. We'll see.
One day. All right. When you have like 6 months off to do nothing but binge. Yeah.
So head-shakingly bad, huh? I'm going to call you out on that one. No, even though if you listen to that episode, me and Daphne seem to really enjoy Eli a lot. The online consensus, because I do manage to do that a lot after watching movies and TV shows, is going online and seeing what people think. You are in the majority of a lot of people seem to not enjoy that so much. I thought it was really cool, but also anything dark, satanic, occult, kind of like that's a special spot for me that I do enjoy. So it might not be everybody's cup of tea, but it was a twist I didn't see coming that I thought was very pleasant because I enjoy that kind of stuff anyway. But
yeah. Well, if you would like to send feedback in like Tony did, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Run for Your Lives Podcast. You can find us on Twitter at RFYL Podcast. Email us at runforyourlivespodcast@gmail.com. And if you're enjoying the show, tell your friends. We are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, pretty much all other podcast players, including YouTube. Go to runforyourlivespodcast.com for all the links you'll ever need and give us a review on Apple Podcasts, as that's the best way to share the love and get us out there even more. We really appreciate it.
Yes, we do indeed. And speaking of sharing the love, of course, I got to give some shout outs to things going on in the podcast universe around us over here on Podcastica and elsewhere. Of course, Strange Indeed, my other podcast with Rima. We are still trucking through season 4 of You over on Netflix. We got it. We'll be caught up soon. See, episode 4 is out. We'll be recording episode 5 next week, and it will be up like a day or two before the second half of the season drops. So if you listen to it like a little bit like right after we release that episode, then you'll be caught up on all our thoughts on every episode that is available for you right now next week. But then, yeah, like 2 days later, the back half will drop. So we'll roll right into that. So I'm excited. I'm loving this season. It's been really fun. Been different for that show. I'm liking that. Of course, Podcastica has so much other great stuff for really any show you could be interested in. Like the most talked about shows right now, most of them are being covered on Podcastica.
Mhm.
We're really on it, so I like that. The Last of Us, of course, is just huge and amazing, and you can check out coverage of that over on The Cast of Us, where Jason, Lucy, and Karen covering episode 7, Left Behind this week. It's been really great. Of course, they're also doing the after shows on YouTube every week as well, directly after it's done airing over on HBO. You go to the YouTube channel, the Podcastica YouTube channel, and check out Alex and his guests talking after show. So go check that out as well. The Murder Magnets, a Poker Face podcast, still going as well, covering episode 6 this week. And the Extraordinary Cast with Greg and Penny, episode 5. So if you're a fan of those shows, make sure to go check those out. And then Jerry and Alex covered the finale of 1923 over on the 1923 podcast, which, if you're listening to this episode, you know I'm a big fan of Taylor Sheridan. I love 1923. So yeah, so that just wrapped. It's funny that we did a Taylor Sheridan movie releasing that the week that 1923 ended. This first
I know,
season.
right?
Didn't even plan that, but it just worked out that way.
But it's coming back for season 2, 1923, that is.
Yes.
Will be coming back for season 2.
Yes, it will.
So that's great.
After that season 1 finale, I'm like, yeah, I'm glad that they're coming back. You better not leave me there.
It sounds really bad.
But man, it's great. That show is incredible. I mean, again, if you watched this movie, if you're listening to us talk about it, then you know this kind of world of Taylor Sheridan. Then just imagine that with Harrison Ford and Helen Mirren and you know, everybody else that's been on that show has been so good. Timothy Dalton. So
You know what? Taylor Sheridan manages to pull together a cast that includes actors and actresses that we know from movies, like big name movie actors and actresses he's bringing in. So it's very cool.
Yeah. So Timothy Dalton, James Bond is playing a horrible villain in this. So if you want to see the switch there, he's great. He's downright despicable. It's amazing. So yeah, so give some love to 1923 and Jerry and Alex over there on that podcast. So give those a listen. And then a little outside Podcastica, of course, TV podcast industries covering The Bad Batch, new season starting there. Picard and The Last of Us. And then Adrenaline Cinema, Jerry and Mark talking 1978's Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And then had a special episode with Danny and Laura over there, kind of recapping, talking about season 1 of AMC's Interview with the Vampire. So you can check that out. And then
I want to listen to that one.
I still haven't watched it, so
I haven't either, but I really want to listen to it because I'm sure that Danny and Laura have done such a great job.
Yeah, I know they're both huge Anne Rice fans, so
yeah. So it's going to be great. Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Pake, that is a Run for Your Lives movie too.
Oh, definitely. Absolutely.
So we're going to cover that further down the road.
We totally should, and will. And then another Podcastica one to double back because it wasn't on here, but I thought about it because The Mandalorian is back. Season 3 is out.
Oh my gosh!
So the Star Wars TV podcast over on Podcastica will be putting up an episode for the first episode of season 3 of The Mandalorian very soon. So keep your eyes peeled for that as well.
Did you get to watch it yet?
I did watch it, and it's so good. It's The Mandalorian. Yeah.
I'm hoping to watch it tomorrow, and I can't believe I haven't. It's just been a busy couple of days.
Yeah, tell me about it. But so that's what's going on right now. Go check out all of those podcasts if you want to listen to stuff about all of those shows and movies and things going on. We have some great friends that are doing amazing podcasts out there, so go check those out. But then as far as this podcast, hopefully you'll still come back next week and hang out with us for a little bit because we've got something really cool going on here, something fun. What are we talking about next week?
Well, I'm keeping it very simple with the synopsis. There really isn't one. We are talking about this incredible film, Nope, which came out in July of 2022. It's Jordan Peele's third film, and he continues to focus on telling stories that have underlying themes.
Yeah.
Very much like Get Out and Us, this one continues with that trend. And I'm really interested in what people have to say about it. We had a fantastic discussion about it. So I'm looking forward to what the feedback will be next week.
Yeah, so definitely check out Nope. Give us your thoughts. I'd love to have a lot of feedback for that one. So anyone who is still listening at this point, then, thank you. And also give us some feedback for Nope, because I want a lot because we do record these like a week in advance right now. And so we've talked about it. It's a deep dive, not too long, but it's a deep dive. There's a lot to talk about that movie. When it's Jordan Peele involved, there's just so much underlying stuff going on. And I would love to know other people's thoughts about those themes and things as well. So,
yeah, I'm wondering if there are questions that people have. Yeah, it answered a lot of my questions. Our discussion really helped.
Cool. Good.
Watching it a second time also really helped. So, looking forward to getting that episode out there. And we're getting closer, Pake. That'll be episode 120, which means we only have 5 episodes left in our season. We're going to be coming up on another Tremors.
Yeah. So and 4 more movies, and then our look back. And one of those movies will be another Tremors. So
yes.
And then look back, I think we're going to do something different and new. It's still going to be a look back. We'll still talk about our favorites of the season, but it's going to be done in kind of a different format that you'll just have to wait to see what that is.
I think you'll still love it. I think you will. I think you'll really enjoy it. We're spicing it up just a little bit.
Uh-huh. You know how we like to play around with stuff season to season.
Yeah. And with that, we've reached the end of another fun episode. Thanks for listening. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And if you have to run, you better run for your lives.
Bye-bye.